Thank you for tuning in once again to Gods, Demons, and Magic. This is your host, Sri Satchidananda Das. We're exploring the Egyptian mysteries by Iamblichus, and in this ancient text, the Egyptian priest Abaman is explaining the supernatural manifestations within magical rituals to the Greek philosopher Porphyry. And in this particular section, he's going to go into great detail about what do the gods look like when they appear through magic ritual. You know, what happens when they're standing before you, as well as what happens when various archangels and angels, the daemons, various half-gods, archons, as well as the spirits of human beings, and all these different supernatural creatures, what do they look like when they're summoned in ritual? And in previous episodes, we gave examples from Greek magical papyri, what these different rituals were like. There's so many different types of rituals. There's also ritual dramas, which are secrets within the mystery schools. You might have a particular pastime or activity of a god, a story about that god, and that particular ritual will be enacted by initiates. And these are secrets, you know, that like these, what these rituals look like and exactly what they did. Practically speaking, none of that information exists to this day because only the initiates understood. But from what we know, basically they would, enter into a secret ritual surrounded by their fellow initiates, and they would interact and perform the pastimes in a theatrical way of the god, individuals taking upon themselves different symbols of the gods, etc. And so according to the Egyptian priest Abaman, through these rituals, sometimes if they're done properly, and they're done in the proper consciousness, and they're done with the right attitude and the right understanding, then these supernatural beings would actually appear. And this is, Abaman is saying he's personally seen this, he's experienced it, and others have experienced it as well. In fact, Iamblichus was also taught, this apparently happened to him as well, that, he has actually seen personal daemons being invoked and things like that. And Iamblichus, as a Neoplatonist, the author of the text, he's really trying to convince us through this text the power of magic ritual. It could be the magic ritual of the Greek mysteries, but also through the Egyptian mysteries, these different secret societies, you might say, religious groups of priests, etc., that perform these rituals. They're very powerful, and they're able to invoke various supernatural beings, and especially the invocation of the gods is most desirable. Completely purifies the consciousness and sort of banishes away all the darkness of illusion within ourselves. As we mentioned in the last episode, the goal of the human form of life is to really move towards enlightenment. We all come from the spiritual platform of the One or the Good or God. We enter into the world and we're covered with illusion. And then the human is specifically meant to elevate his consciousness and return to that supreme destination, that illuminated state. And so there's many different practices of how to do this, and Porphyry is understood to prefer sort of philosophical contemplation as well as practice of astrology, finding one's personal daemon and interacting with that daemon. Whereas Iamblichus really prefers this process of magic ritual and actually invoking the gods directly and dealing with them directly. And if you have the right attitude with the gods and you have the sort of like personal qualities of humility and gentleness and sort of like divine qualities manifest in you through purification, then the gods want to hang out with you. They want to welcome you into their association. Sort of like the more that you, through ritual, elevate your consciousness to commune with them, the more and more purified you become, the more you develop their qualities. And so this is the practice, or the religious practice that is most preferred by Iamblichus. And so, without further ado, let's discuss what these different entities are like when they appear within the ritual. So the first thing when a god appears before you in a ritual is that you'll see blinding light. In fact, it's so overwhelming that you practically can't see anything else. It's just shining brilliantly. You imagine these Egyptians are performing a particular ritual. They're going about their enacting their divine drama, and then all of a sudden, wow, everyone has to cover their eyes because this huge, brilliant light, this effulgent light, which makes you feel extremely purified just when it interacts with you. It's like a very soft, brilliant, beautiful light, and you don't just see it. It doesn't just blind you, but you actually feel it. You feel it penetrating you and purifying you, and you feel enlivened, like your consciousness is raised immediately, and you feel calm and peaceful and tranquil. It's not like sometimes in the biblical traditions you'll see, like the vision of God is terrifying and horrifying and, makes you scared. But the vision of the gods, at least according to the Egyptians, it makes you very peaceful and it makes you feel very calm and happy and joyous. And there's really, you'll see there's an otherworldly fire. It's like a fire that's surrounding them and illuminating the room. And it's shining very brightly. There's no sound to the fire. Like if you hear a fire normally, it's like there's some noise coming from the fire. But here it's like a silent flame, and it doesn't look like a flame of this world. But it's magnificent. It's like a conflagration which is filling the whole world. In fact, it's so bright that it's said by Abaman to blot out the sun, the moon, and the stars. He also says the earth does not stand firm. So what I would take this to mean is that you kind of lose your direction, like you're so overwhelmed that you forget what up and down is, what left and right is. You become bewildered. Like you're just sort of, it's more than just seeing like some bright thing enter the room. It's like the vision consumes you, and you no longer know you're within the vision now. You're not within a room. You're within the vision, and you don't know what up or down is, or left or right, or anything like that. You've been fully drawn in, and you're kind of almost no longer within the world, and that this entire world is blotted out by that vision. It's like they really fill your whole consciousness and all of your senses so that the world disappears and all there is this vision. And it's a brilliant spectacle of reality. And what you may see is various aspects of reality that the God is in charge of. Right? Like say it's the god of earth or something. You might see sort of within this vision the the beauty of the earth, rolling fields and villages and trees, and all of it looks very organic. This is something important. With the vision of other supernatural beings, the things they show you aren't quite as clear. It kind of looks a little misty or foggy or smoky, but with the gods it's like you can reach out and touch it and it's real, which is quite interesting. And Abaman mentions that the light of this vision, this abundant light, is so overwhelming that human beings can't breathe. It's like you're surrounded by the divine fire, and somehow it's like you choke, like you're completely overwhelmed by it. He mentions it's like a fish out of water gasping, right? And you actually become feeble, you become weak. It's not necessarily some kind of, bad experience or something like that, but it's like you can barely stand, like you feel yourself sort of like so overwhelmed that you can barely maintain yourself. And as this light shines out, it's an undivided flame. So, sometimes you may think of a light shining out in many different rays, kind of like twinkling in all directions. This isn't like, a light source like at a club or something where you have that laser that's shooting in, 100 different rays. It's just one undivided flame, like one, blazing light emanating like the sun. And then you see the actual form of the God. And it's interesting because just as we said, the things that appear around the God, the energies they control, the earth, the trees, the villages, all these things are real, so real you can touch them. So similarly, the God, when he appears or she appears, even though their effulgence is so brilliant that it's breathtaking, literally, you actually see them just as you'd see another human being. Like they're standing there, and Abaman describes that their body is glowing. It's an effulgent body. It's not just a regular human being. They're like glowing very beautifully, but they're real. They have a form there, and the form, it's steady. Some of these other supernatural beings will hear that their form is like either flickering or it's smoky or it's always changing. But with the gods, it's like once they appear, they're there in the room with you just like another person, and they don't change their form. And when you see them, they cause you to feel happy. Like immediately you feel like so joyful and so happy to see them, and you feel totally satisfied, and you feel filled with wonder, like, wow, this is so beautiful. It's almost like you become speechless and you're overwhelmed with the feeling of just admiration and like you almost want to weep because they're so beautiful. And they are organic, so it's not like they're just some kind of vision. I mean, you can like reach out and touch them if you wanted to. And they don't appear alone either. They're always surrounded by their servants, which are other gods as well as angels. So you'll see, there's the God is there and he's shining really brilliantly. But, next to him is his consort and there's like 20 or 30 other gods all around them. So it's like this whole retinue will appear in the middle of your ritual. And you feel very purified because that's one of their effects. They're there trying to uplift the various souls in the world in spiritual consciousness. So when they enter the room, it's like you feel totally purified. And not only that, they say like after the ritual, you feel like your body feels healthy, like whatever ailments, you had a headache or you were just down and out or you're miserable. It's like all these things, they immediately vanish in the presence of the God. All the physical infirmities, as well as, mental, emotional infirmities. You came into the ritual and you're worried about your wife or your husband or, this kid, I haven't heard from him or her or they need money or, all these things that we're constantly worrying about and thinking about. As soon as the God appears, all these things vanish from your mind. You're no longer disturbed by all these things. It's just like not only do they just vanish, but you see everything clearly, so you're no longer worried. It's like it brings virtue to the soul and purifies the mind, and it gives you knowledge just being in their association. And so immediately, like all your problems just vanish. And this is the realization of people that associate with great saintly people. Those souls that are also enlightened. They may be on this earth as great saints or something. You have all your worldly troubles. You may even be going to the saint with the intention of, spreading it all out before them and having them pick through it and maneuver through it and tell you how to work everything out, right? But as soon as you enter into the room and, express your reverences and sit down in their presence, immediately it's like all of it's just blasted away and you don't even, sometimes you just forgot to even mention it, like you left and you're thinking, my gosh, I wanted them, I forgot to tell them I have this problem and that problem and this problem, and I just totally forgot. And, even now they're not really that big of a problem, like I can see just from sitting in their association that these things are all very small and there's nothing to really worry about, So this is because you're dealing with pure consciousness. And so when you're dealing with the gods, it's very much something similar. And when the gods, when they're dealing with you, they speak to the point, like say all of a sudden the God begins speaking. They're very direct and they just tell you exactly what the situation is, and they just immediately, sort of enlighten you with their words. They don't waste words, in other words. They just speak in a very clear, concise way. And everything they speak about, it leads you upwards in consciousness. It's all meant for your benefit, for your enlightenment. And you feel those own sort of negative qualities within you, that coldness within you, the destructive qualities within you, the lust, the anger, the hatred, all these things, they sort of melt away in the association of the gods, and you feel warm, right? You feel like warm and caring. You can imagine after a ritual where a god appears, when all the initiates leave the room and everything, they're like, oh, it's so nice to see you, and oh my gosh, they're like practically giggling, and they're like floating almost like a feather on the wind, like their consciousness is very buoyant and they feel very sweet and loving towards each other, and everyone's like practically crying, and hugging and shaking each other's hands, we'll see you next time, and this is a powerful thing. Because you can imagine, a small town like this, like an Egyptian city, like Heliopolis or one of these holy cities, Karnak or something. You have individuals leaving, maybe like 20, 30, 100 even individuals leaving these mysteries, these initiated rituals, and like the whole town becomes enlightened, like everyone sees, my gosh, these people, like look what's happened to them, the change in their consciousness. And also, Ambaman says, the gods exhibit that which is not body as body to the eyes of the soul through those of the body. This is a pretty far out statement. It's like they make things visible to you which are subtle, which are astral or spiritual. The things that they manifest in their vision to you, They appear to be just real. They're right before you. And you see them with the eyes of your soul, but you see them through your own physical eyes, So it's like they're showing you a spiritual vision with your soul, but, to your soul, and you're seeing it with your soul, but they're giving the power for you to see it through your physical eyes as well. So this is something that is manifest right before you in a very concrete way. And so what the gods impart to you is sincerity and power. So there's a sense in which after you've had this experience with the gods, you now have the power to overcome things and to have success in your undertakings. Right? Like when you leave, you don't just feel this kind of pure consciousness. You're ready to actually act in the world and to do things and to actually accomplish things, especially for a spiritual purpose. Especially for your spiritual realization, you're going to feel now, I'm going to go home. You finish the initiations, the God had vanished, and you're left sort of reeling from this divine vision. And now you feel resolved, I'm going to go home. I'm going to be a better man. Or I'm going to be a better woman. I'm going to go into my work, and I'm going to try to work in such a way that I'm elevated in consciousness. These various obstacles that I have in life, I'm going to overcome them, and I can overcome them. And you can. It's like the God imparted to you or gifted you with the capacity that comes with raising your consciousness, raising your awareness. And you're gifted with the ability to do things that you weren't given before. And also this element of being imparted with sincerity. That's very important. Whatever ulterior motives and things like that you had, or whatever lack of faith you may have had, right? Whatever sort of like your determination was many branched, like you had many different desires and many different conceptions, and you were kind of confused and you weren't all that sincere. But then when you had this experience, all of a sudden you feel very sincere. Yes, this is what I'm going to do. This is truth. It's like you've been brought into focus in your life by the gift of the God. And so that's one of the main things that's needed in life, right? You need sincerity. You need focus. You need determination. You need to be able to focus one-pointedly on achieving your goal. And that's oftentimes very hard. But, as many people may experience with religious experiences, when you leave, you feel, now I'm going to do it. My life is clear to me. The path has been made obvious, right? Like now I know what I want to do, what I have to do, and how to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to change, right? I'm going to do it. So that's how you feel after leaving the association of the gods. And so they gift you with all sorts of benefits, but primarily it seems from Abaman to be kind of like raising your consciousness, purifying you, giving you the force of sincerity and the power to take on life and to advance your consciousness and whatever your situation may be, and to overcome all the hurdles and obstacles. So this is really the gift of the gods. So thank you very much for listening. If you found value in this, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please visit srisachinandana.com/iTunes and leave a positive review. Thank you again, and we hope you'll join us next time on Gods, Demons, and Magic.